So the question is, does history repeat itself? I know we've talked about the migrant situation in New York and everything like that, and I always kind of refer over to Los Angeles and the West Coast and Oakland and different places like that as to where New York could be headed. Don't believe me? Let's check out this video here. What just emerged in downtown Los Angeles scares the world. Here we go.
The Los Angeles City Council has passed a new ordinance requiring landlords to pay relocation costs for tenants who can't afford higher rent.
All right, cities in the southeast region of LA County
the city of angels has fallen. Walking through this deserted urban landscape, even the ground beneath your feet bears the scars of neglect. Vandals have marked their presence by tagging the concrete, turning it into a grim guest book in a celebration of the forgotten. The businesses that once thrived here are now closed, standing silently at the corner of 14th Street and Main Street. There's a small attempt to bring some order to the chaos, where trash is piled neatly in one spot. Perhaps a futile attempt to impose some order in a place overwhelmed by disorder. People wander around, their eyes scanning the ground for anything useful left behind in a space that's lost its purpose. They look through what remains of once bustling shops, not just searching for objects, but for any sign of the area's past energy and life. The situation becomes increasingly surreal as we pass more closed shops that are unlikely to reopen anytime soon. A sign that reads, "King of Fur" hangs weakly. The kingdom it once represented has clearly fallen, leaving nothing but traces of past irony. Further along...
The crazy thing about that is, imagine a kid having to walk through this to get to school. This is what he has to pass by, he or she has to pass by on a daily basis to get to school. You know, it's a lot to deal with.
Clearly fallen, leaving nothing but traces of past irony. Further along, the empty shell of what used to be a busy retail pharmacy stands empty and echoing at the corner, its purpose and presence completely drained away. Our path takes us deeper into the heart of downtown Los Angeles, along Main Street, a trip that has turned into a critical observation of urban abandonment. The once Grand Berkeley Hotel is now just a hollow shell, with the businesses next to it sharing in its bleak fate. Nearby, the entrance to the hotel is being cleaned by people in hazardous materials suits, a scene that is as morbid as it is desperate. Here, on 4th Street and Main Street, the story of decline is clearly written on the facades of buildings, a testament to the relentless advance of urban decay that has turned this part of the city into a ghost town of business, a stark reminder of what once was, and a cynical commentary on the fleeting nature of human efforts in the face of economic downturns and societal neglect. This once bustling area is now a poignant example of urban failure, its deserted streets and boarded-up windows serving as a harsh lesson on the fragility of urban prosperity. As we walk along the 400 block of Main Street, it's clear that this area, which used to be bustling with activity, has significantly declined. Each corner and storefront tells a story of economic hardship, with one empty shop following another, like a relentless sequence of dominoes toppling over. Spaces that once hosted lively restaurants now display "for lease" signs in their dusty windows, a stark reminder of their better days now lost to time. The story is the same next door, where the echo of emptiness reverberates down the street, shop after shop, stands closed, abandoned, and forgotten. Consider the former Vyami's restaurant.
I mean, look at the outside. The outside tells the story as to why the business owners packed up and left. They were probably having to deal with the homeless situation on the outside, or the homeless trying to break in, or some people trying to break into their businesses. Customers not wanting to deal with that on a day-to-day basis, possibly being harassed by the homeless or feeling afraid. Yeah, it weighs on your business.
And forgotten. Consider the former Vyami's restaurant, a place that once buzzed with the sounds of conversation and dining, now just another relic of the past. Its exterior is so worn and neglected, it seems to whisper tales of its vibrant past, now overshadowed by quiet and decay. As we continue down the street, each storefront we pass adds to the narrative of decline, each one shut down, its windows dark and uninviting. This relentless pattern continues unabated. For lease signs have become as common as street lamps here, each one marking the fall of another local business. It feels as though these signs are more numerous than the people, each announcing yet another vacancy, another slice of community life lost to economic downturns. Across the street, things look just as bad. Many shops are closed, and the whole area feels sad and unwelcoming. You might think twice before walking around here. This particular corner looks very downbeat. It's not only unappealing, it also feels a bit dangerous, showing just how much this part of the town has deteriorated. Take a look at this place. There aren't any for lease signs, just makeshift barriers to stop people from setting up temporary homes on the sidewalks. It's a temporary fix to one of the many problems this city faces. The signs that do show up every now and then aren't very encouraging. They don't just say, space is available. They also mark the spot where someone's business dream died. People walking past this area seem in a hurry, almost as if they can't wait to get away. They might be trying to leave the sad sights behind, or maybe they just want to escape the feeling of loss that hangs heavy all around. This dreary atmosphere isn't just uncomfortable, it tells a story of a neighborhood in trouble. It's not just about empty buildings, it's about what those buildings represent. Each closed door and dark window speaks to a failed business, a lost job, and a slice of the community that's no longer there. On this street, the empty storefronts line up one after the other like a row of silent witnesses to better times now long gone. They stand as stark reminders of economic struggles and the challenges small business owners face in keeping their dreams alive. As you look around, the few people you do see are moving quickly, eager to pass through without stopping. Their quick steps and downward glances suggest they're not just avoiding the physical obstacles of a neglected sidewalk, but also dodging the feelings of despair that such a scene evokes. It's a place that makes you think about more than just the economic health of a city. It makes you wonder about the social and emotional impacts of such widespread decline. How does living in or near such decay affect the people who see it every day? What does it do to a community when the places that once brought them together are now just empty shells? This corner, this street, this part of the city stands as a stark example of urban decline, a visual story about the loss of vibrancy and the creeping in of neglect.
The sad thing about it is, for the people that live around here, for some they think it's normal. They've seen it their entire life, right? They walk past it every day, i.e., like I spoke about earlier, going to school, or they pass by it going to work on their way to work, or to catch their bus to go to work or go somewhere. They see this every day, so to them this is normal. And they've learned how to interact, to live with it. They've learned that, they've adapted to it. So to them it's nothing, this is normal. It's not until they travel outside and move and come back to realize that this was a messed up place to be. Like, for them, you probably ask them, they just say this is how it is.
It's a reminder that the health of a city isn't just about economics. It's also about safety, beauty, and the spirit of the community. As you watch people skirt quickly around the barriers and away from the closed shops, it's clear that the impact of this urban decay runs deep, affecting not just the landscape, but the very way people interact with their environment. Think it can't get worse? Come with me across the street, where the story of neglect continues without end. The community's economic decline. Let's cross to the other side of the street, where the view is predictably similar, lined with more vacant shops. This redundancy of closures and disrepair tells a detailed story of urban decay. The buildings, with their boarded-up windows and peeling paint, alongside the sparse pedestrians with their hurried strides, illustrate a neighborhood deeply affected by neglect and loss of hope. Each empty store not only represents a closed business, but also reflects the broader struggles of the community and the city, underlining the severe impact of economic instability and the slow response to urban decline. As we walk through this neighborhood, it's immediately clear that many shops are no longer open. There aren't any signs welcoming customers, just a series of empty storefronts that stretch down the street, each one silent and deserted. First one empty store, then another, and another, 3 in a row, standing like quiet monuments to a time when this street was more lively. The sound of sirens in the distance seems almost fitting here, adding to the atmosphere of a place that's lost its vibrancy. At the corner, "For Lease" sign swings above what used to be Earthmar, suggesting it might have shut down not too long ago. Inside, the shelves still hold some items, and in the back, refrigerators sit unused, hinting at a business that closed suddenly. Moving on, we see more of the same, a series of shops, each abandoned with "For Lease" signs in their windows. It's hard to tell one from the next. They all share the same look of neglect. One particular spot, completely boarded up, used to be a restaurant. Its nearby outdoor seating area is now just an empty space with old restaurant signs and windows covered in paper, signaling that it's been a long time since anyone dined there. The pattern repeats with several retail spaces next door. Each one is closed, the windows dark, the space is empty. It's difficult.
Imagine what those retail stores had to deal with. Y'all have all seen it on the news. People running in, tearing up, snatching grabs, snatching up all the merchandise and running out of the store. All of this while normal business operations are taking place. So the customers are scared. They're witnessing this and seeing this, and just groups of people running in the store, grabbing what they can grab and running out. Yeah, it's causing these retail stores to shut down.
To guess what these places might have once been. One might have even been a hotel, but now they're just part of the rundown scenery. Over on 7th and Main, this sad theme continues with a large corner building that's also empty, marked by a "For Lease" sign that seems to be a common sight here. The adjacent shops are in the same condition, shut down and forgotten. Looking across the street, there seems to be a Chinese restaurant that at first glance appears open, but a closer look reveals it too is probably closed. The disappointment continues as the next business around the corner also shows signs of long-term closure, with windows boarded up to discourage trespassers. Further down the road, there's a lineup of more shops, all vacant. Each has a "For Lease" sign posted up front, signaling they're available for rent. But there's no sign of interest. The interiors are large, echoing spaces that once housed bustling businesses, now just empty echoes of their former selves. This area, once filled with the hustle and bustle of thriving shops and restaurants, now offers a clear view of economic hardship. The empty stores along these streets are stark reminders of better times gone by and the challenges faced by business owners here. The continuous display of empty and boarded-up shops not only reflects the economic struggles of the community, but also poses questions about the future recovery and revitalization of this once flourishing neighborhood. As we walk down 7th Street and turn onto Los Angeles Street, the scene of desolation doesn't let up. One by one, each shop stands quiet and abandoned, their windows not just shut, but sealed with boards. It's as though these boards are there to protect the outside world from the gloom that lingers within, or maybe to hide the apathy that has taken over this area. Layers upon layers of wooden planks cover what were once bustling stores, now silent and empty as if they're haunted relics of a more prosperous time. The stores don't even display "for lease" signs. It seems they've given up any hope of new beginnings, left to meet their fate without even a goodbye. The string of empty stores continues relentlessly, each one a testament to the profound level of economic failure here. Another large deserted space follows, then another. Each was a place teeming with life and business, now just vast voids filled with the remnants of shattered aspirations. The extent to which business has vanished from this street is startling, almost as if a tide of neglect has swept everything away. Block after block, each storefront stands vacant and abandoned. Occasionally, a lonely "for lease" sign peeks out from a window, its presence almost mocking amidst the widespread neglect. Many shops no longer even bother with signs, their identities wiped clean as if erased from memory, making the vastness of their emptiness even more striking. These spaces are large, too large for the emptiness they now contain, creating a hollow echo that reverberates down the deserted street. One spot, which once buzzed as a bustling restaurant, now displays a "retail for lease" sign, its space divided into two gloomy units, both empty shells. The entrance remains barricaded, oddly preserved, as though attempting to hold onto the ghost of happier times behind its sealed doors.
Now, I wonder what type of effect this is going to have on the housing market. Because once the businesses start leaving, then it's no longer a place where people want to live. You know? People often move to places because of the different things that it offers, amenities and stuff like that. When it's no longer sought after like that because of different things like this and everything is abandoned, then you ain't gonna want to live there. So now the housing market, what does that do to that? How does it affect that? Houses will start to climb because nobody's buying there. Values will come down. Like, this has a ripple effect.
This stretch of road is a bleak exhibition of economic failure. Every empty storefront, every abandoned lot narrates a tale of decline and disintegration. What was once a vibrant hub of commerce has transformed into a desolate ghost town. The boarded-up windows, the expansive vacant interiors, and the occasional mournful "for lease" sign depict a community seemingly erased by economic success. The silence is haunting, and the omnipresent emptiness starkly warns of the consequences when a neighborhood is forgotten and left to decay. It serves as a visual storybook of urban decline, showcasing the lost potential and the harsh realities of neglect. Walking through this area feels like traversing a museum of recent ruin. The lack of life, the absence of activity, speaks volumes. The story of decline is written on the walls, in the hollow storefronts, and on the dusty windows. These spaces, once alive with daily commerce and interaction, now stand as somber monuments to a faltered economy. It's a palpable representation of decline, where the impact of economic downturns is visually and physically evident. The few signs that do appear seem to underscore the irony of the situation, offers of space in places no one seems to want to inhabit. Each sign not only advertises available space, but also marks the fall of what once was a thriving business. The absence of activity makes these signs feel more like tombstones than invitations, each one a marker of failure rather than an opportunity. Moreover, the size of these empty spaces adds to the eerie atmosphere. They are too large for the emptiness they encompass, as if they were not designed to be this quiet, this deserted. Inside, the remnants of past operations, shelving, counters, faded floor markings, speak of better days, now just memories fading as quickly as the paint on the walls. This scenario paints a vivid picture of what happens when economic vitality drains away from an area. It's not just the loss of businesses, but the loss of jobs, community interaction, and neighborhood security. The empty shops are not just physical vacancies. They represent gaps in the community fabric, missing links, in what should be a bustling chain of local economics and social interaction. Walking down this street, the stark reality of urban decay becomes increasingly apparent. It's a harsh environment, not just for those few who still pass by, but also speaks to broader social issues of economic policy, urban planning, and community support systems that have failed to keep pace with the needs of the residents. This deserted stretch is a tangible reminder of the fragility of urban prosperity and the ease with which it can crumble without sustained investment and renewal. Walk deeper into this forgotten part of town, where the air itself speaks of decay. Each step shows more of a once busy area, now silent and left behind. The dark echoes of abandoned shops. We come across more shops. These are smaller, cramped spaces, squeezed next to a parking lot that seems to have taken over more vibrant establishments that once stood here. We see the same bleak pattern across the street. More shops closed up tight. Every shop front is closed off. The windows are frosted or painted over, making it clear that nothing inside is open for business. We decide to finish checking out this side of the street before we cross over, but it's hard to ignore the state of disrepair even under our feet. The sidewalk is tagged with graffiti and covered in grime. The air is filled with an unpleasant smell, a clear indication of decay. When we look down, we see the sidewalk isn't just dirty, it's swarming with flies. There are so many, buzzing around something rotten that we can't see, that it feels risky to even step closer. Now, as we make our way onto 8th Street, the sense of abandonment doesn't fade. On the corner ahead, there's another vacant building, its "For Lease" sign hanging sadly by one corner, fluttering in the breeze. The windows of this building are so...
How do they even begin to fix this or remedy the situation? Like, where do you start? What do you do? You come through and you clean up everything. You put the homeless in programs in different places that the government can provide. If there's any possible room now that they have this whole migrant crisis going on. Once you can do that, then maybe you can start to clean up and revitalize the area, make it attractive for businesses to come in. The prices at that point will be low, so it'll be worth their while. But they got to know they're safe, right?
So thoroughly covered that you can't see inside, where the Aldemar Hotel once operated, presumably offering a welcoming space to weary travelers. Now, it just adds to the long list of forsaken spaces. Every boarded-up window, every empty parking space, and every washed-out "For Lease" sign along these streets tell a tale of decline. It's not just about the businesses that have shut down, it's about the loss of community life and local enterprise. This pervasive emptiness paints a stark portrait of a neighborhood abandoned by economic growth, seemingly erased from the memories of those who might have once thrived here. The once lively community spirit seems extinguished, replaced by an overwhelming sense of neglect and loss that blankets this part of the city. We make our way through the streets of downtown Los Angeles. What we see is far from the lively urban center it once was. Instead, we are met with a series of closures and lost opportunities that paint a somber picture of the area. The remains of what used to be a bustling Mexican restaurant are especially striking. Its once inviting outdoor seating area is now just an empty space with a lonely "For Lease" sign waving in the wind, a sad reminder of its better days. The restaurant's name, Benito, is still visible on a menu that's gathering dust behind the boarded-up windows, silently speaking of a time when this place was full of life. Walking down this street feels like moving through a ghost town of commerce. Each business is closed up, with wooden boards covering what used to be windows full of life and activity. Signs that once promised a place for creation and innovation now appear almost sarcastic as they hang over empty storefronts that have seen no recent use. The contrast is jarring. Where there was once the buzz of potential and growth, there is now only the quiet of stagnation and decline. Directly across from this sad scene, a small restaurant somehow manages to keep its doors open, starkly contrasting the widespread shutdowns around it. Nearby, there's a small park that provides a splash of green against the overwhelming gray of abandoned shops. The surrounding shopping center, however, tells the same story as the rest of the block. All of its shops are closed, their doors sealed tightly to keep out vandals. There's a certain pristine look to the boarded-up storefronts. None of the boards have been defaced by graffiti, indicating they've been left untouched since they were put up. This cleanliness, though, feels ironic rather than comforting, highlighting the depth of the area's decline. Signs along the street advertise restaurant and retail opportunity, but these promises ring hollow when you look at the reality. Shop after shop stands empty, with no signs of new tenants or renewed activity. Another vacant store comes into view, and then another, each looking as abandoned as the last. By the time we reach the corner of Olympic and Main, the dismal pattern repeats with yet another retail space that's no longer in use. Its exterior shows signs of vandalism, a visible expression of the local community's frustration and despair over the economic downturn that has gripped this part of the city. This entire area, once a thriving hub of commerce and social life, now serves as a stark example of urban decay. The series of closures we've walked past isn't just a row of failed businesses, it's a clear indicator of the broader economic challenges facing this neighborhood. Each closed shop, with its peeling paint and dusty windows, adds to a narrative of decline that seems to have taken over downtown Los Angeles. This isn't just about empty buildings, it's about the loss of community vibrancy, the erosion of local economies, and the fading spirit of what used to be a dynamic part of the city. Continuing our trip through the neighborhood, the same heartbreaking scene repeats itself at every corner. Each storefront, once full of life and buzzing with customers, is now just a closed-up shell, abandoned and overlooked. The graffiti that once added a bit of color is now sloppily covered with paint in a feeble attempt to maintain some semblance of order. However, this quick fix does little to hide the real chaos beneath. The doors, which once swung open invitingly to welcome patrons, are now forever closed, as if trying to lock away the happy memories of bustling days past.
I remember when it used to be talked about going to LA. It was like a dream, just like going to New York to make it big. It was either New York or going out to LA, baby. You don't even hear that type of talk anymore. It's no longer an inspiring dream of many. It's not. If you hear it brought up these days, it's people warning you, tell you, all right, you go out there, you better be careful. You better be safe. Don't be traveling and wandering around sightseeing in places that you haven't been told to do so, or it can end bad for you. Like, that's the talk now.
As we walk deeper into Olympic Boulevard, the surroundings begin to feel almost dreamlike, resembling less of a city street and more of a makeshift settlement for those who have nowhere else to go. The sidewalks, overshadowed by the darkened facades of the shops, have unwillingly turned into makeshift shelters for the homeless. This scene of urban neglect continues as we approach Main Street, which mirrors the grim atmosphere of Olympic. More closed shops, more signs of abandonment, their once lively presence now just a memory, signaled only by fading sale signs desperately clinging to the windows in a last futile attempt to attract any remaining customers. The sense of abandonment is palpable throughout the area. The once thriving businesses now stand silent, their windows boarded up, the vibrant displays and cheerful signs replaced by planks of wood and layers of peeling posters. The air is heavy with a sense of loss, not just of business, but of community spirit and local camaraderie. Each closed door adds to the narrative of decline, a sad testament to what was once a flourishing part of the city. Looking around, it's hard not to feel a deep sense of sorrow for the community that used to thrive here. The streets, once filled with the sounds of laughter and the hustle of busy shoppers, are now eerily quiet, save for the occasional footsteps of a passerby hurrying through. The shops that used to serve as meeting places for friends and neighbors are now just empty spaces, serving no purpose but to remind us of better times. This area, once a vibrant hub of commerce and social interaction, has been transformed into a ghost town. The visual impact of the boarded-up windows and the overgrown sidewalks tells a story of neglect and decay that is hard to ignore. It's a stark reminder of the fragility of urban ecosystems and the rapid pace at which they can decline when left unattended. The repetitive sight of closed shops and abandoned buildings becomes overwhelming. It's a visual loop of decline that seems to have no end in sight. Each boarded window, each faded sign, each empty lot speaks volumes about the scale of the economic and social challenges that face this community. Turning another corner, the busy life of shops and talking has given way to quiet. What's left in a place when all the liveliness is just a memory? The silent streets of a recycled district. The signs of closures are not just physical markers of empty spaces, they signal a profound change in the landscape of the city. What was once a lively area filled with shoppers and diners has transformed into a gathering place for a community in crisis. The scene is reminiscent of a national park where people camp by choice. But here, the camping is out of necessity, a stark reflection of a society adapting to harsh urban realities. This part of the city, previously a hub of commerce and social interaction, now serves a different purpose. Every boarded-up window, every faded Felice sign, every empty building speaks volumes about the decline of a district that was once thriving. These signs are more than just notifications of available space. They are poignant reminders of what has been lost. The community that once gathered here for shopping and meals now gathers in a different capacity. The urban environment, once a backdrop for everyday life and economic prosperity, has become a scene of survival. This shift is not just a physical change, but a deep societal shift, where the very fabric of the neighborhood is transformed. The people who remain, those who camp in the shadows of closed shops, are the new face of this area. They are a stark testament to the resilience and adaptability of human beings, but also a living reminder of the broader societal challenges that need addressing. This district, once teeming with life, now exemplifies a profound urban and social metamorphosis. As you wander through the streets of downtown Los Angeles, it's like moving across a patchwork of shops that are either struggling to stay open or have already closed down. The majority lean towards the latter. At one intersection, you can spot a small sign of life where two stores are just managing to keep their doors open. They stand out almost stubbornly amidst a flood of Felice signs that seem to pop up everywhere else. Across the street, the story changes dramatically. One after another, the shops are deserted. What used to be vibrant centers of trade are now just empty spaces, echoing a once thriving past. The Felice signs that hang in their windows serve as grim markers, signaling the downturn of urban business life. This sad pattern repeats block after block. A once busy pharmacy now stands empty, its role in the community and its customers long gone. Storefronts next to it share the same fate: closed, locked up, and forgotten. When you cross to the other side, this theme of abandonment continues without pause. A clothing store, which once boasted of offering the finest American apparel, now joins the ranks of the forgotten, another victim in what looks more like a commercial wasteland than a retail hotspot. Its Felice sign flutters in the wind, a lonely reminder of better times. Walking down these streets is like touring a museum dedicated to recent economic collapse, rather than strolling through a bustling urban neighborhood. Occasionally, you might see a sign suggesting that a store is open with regular hours, but on closer inspection, it turns out to be just an illusion. The store behind the sign is as empty as any other. Nearby, there might be a grocery store that appears to be functioning, an isolated beacon of activity in an otherwise desolate scene. But even this ray of hope is quickly overshadowed by the sight of more closed shops lining the street right beside it. The relentless pattern of closure and decay casts a shadow over the area. Each Felice sign, each shuttered entrance, tells a story not just of individual business failures, but of a broader economic malaise affecting the entire district. This part of Los Angeles, once teeming with life and commerce, now struggles under the weight of economic hardship, with empty storefronts and fading signs painting a stark picture of a neighborhood in decline. The contrast between the few struggling businesses trying to survive and the many that have closed is stark, underscoring the challenges facing this once thriving area. As we delve deeper into the area, the silence is momentarily broken by the sounds of a construction crew at work. In a part of the city that seems largely abandoned, this crew represents a flicker of life, perhaps preparing a storefront for a new venture. This hint of activity offers a slight hope that the trend of endless closures might finally be reversing. However, this brief sense of optimism is quickly overshadowed by the sight of the surrounding shops, each prominently displaying a "for lease" sign, a stark reminder of the ongoing challenges. In this part of town, only a single smoke shop continues to operate amidst a sea of shuttered businesses. Just down the street, another shop briefly suggests vitality, but it's a lone island in a stream of persistent shutdowns. The repeating theme is both clear and disheartening. As we are...
If I'm them, if I'm a resident, I'd be at that mayor's office several times a week. What's going on? What's happening? Bringing a ton of people with you, more and more people each time, till they get it in their head to try to do something about this city, man. This dude has literally walked almost all over the city, as much as he's walked and shown how this place has deteriorated, bro. And other cities and states need to pay attention to this.
Approach the corner of Pico and Main, a handful of stores appear to be open, but the overall picture remains bleak. Signs declaring spaces available far outnumber those indicating active businesses, illustrating the struggle of the district to maintain its commercial vibrancy. Main Street stands out as a poignant symbol of this struggle, with each closed shop serving as a painful reminder of a not-so-distant past when the street buzzed with activity and commerce. Observing this scene is difficult. It's a stark portrayal of a once thriving artery of downtown Los Angeles, now deeply afflicted by economic hardship. The occasional signs of life are too sparse to conceal the prevailing decline, sketching a grim image of a neighborhood spiraling downward. Here, closed doors dominate the landscape, and the few openings are hardly enough to foster hope for a substantial recovery. The demand for new businesses to take up residence is low, mirroring the scarcity of customers and highlighting a desperate need for revitalization in an area that has seen better days. Could the decline of urban centers be an intentional strategy to displace certain communities, or merely the result of economic shifts?